Hi there, Stampers. I'm back with some videos. It's been a couple months since I've posted and I want to get caught up on all of the fun techniques that I've been doing in classes and clubs and just playing actually on my own with all the fun stuff from the holiday supplement. The first video I wanted to get back with is the Faux Patina. And I was just thrilled that I was asked to do a presentation at the East Coast Stampin' event on November 7th and 8th on the Saturday. I did a presentation, a technique presentation, and I chose the Faux Patina for my presentation. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to do a video tutorial to go with that so that all the participants from that event could come back to the blog post and the YouTube channel and actually see it done and go step by step so that they can make their own samples with it as well. Because it's lovely to see presentations, but sometimes you don't remember. It's nice to have that, that video to go along with it so it can remind you of all the different steps. So here we go. I've chosen Whisper White cardstock, and this is a 5.5 by a 4 1/4 piece of paper, and I chose this size. It fits in the embossing folders perfectly, and it's big enough to fill a card front. So hopefully with this technique, no matter if I do this size, no matter what I do with this on my card front, I'll have enough of the pattern. I won't run out. Whether I trim it, whether I punch out certain images of the Faux Patina, I'll have enough for a card front. So that's what I've done with this one, and we're going to get an embossing folder out. I've chosen the Stars one from the holiday catalog. And when we open it up, you're going to have a flat side and you're going to have a raised side. So you can feel the star images on this side, and this side feels flatter. We're going to put our first color of ink on the flat side. And the first color we're going to go with is Crumb Cake. I'm going to open that up. And we're just going to rub that all along the flat side. You don't have to be exact. You don't have to make sure you have ink on every single piece of the embossing folder. It's not an exact technique, which is kind of nice. But as long as you've got some coverage, we're good. Put your cardstock down. And then we're going to use our Texture Boutique and make our sandwich. And we're going to run that through. Oh, knocked the camera there, sorry. Go. Get that out of the way. And then when we open this up, our ink is going to be on our background. So all of those stars are popped up in white. The crumb cake is all over the background. That's the side you want. Definitely clean this before you put it away. For the sake of the video, this is just going to the side. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take our 3 colors of ink and we're going to start sponging. And I've chosen Lost Lagoon, Always Artichoke, and Early Espresso to give that traditional Faux Patina type look. So first we're going to go with the Lost Lagoon. And those foam pads can be very juicy when you're sponging. So just be careful. If you've got a new one that's really juicy, you don't want to dab right in it. You might get a lot of the color on the background, which isn't necessarily what we're going for. You might enjoy that look. Go for it. Play with it. I do have some Faux Patina samples that are very dark and some that are very light, and it just depends on the look you're going for. And if you're wondering what I mean, I have samples I'll show you at the end of the video, and I'll be posting pictures in the blog post as well so that you can really take an up-close look at what I'm talking about for coloring and different shading that you can do. It's a very forgiving technique too, which I mentioned in my presentation, which I like, because if I do the Lost Lagoon and then I go to my next 2 colors and I'm thinking, you know, I've lost that blue tone, I can go back and add the Lost Lagoon and it still pops right out, which is nice. There's no mistakes with this one. So you can see there, I've got that lovely Lost Lagoon color coming out. And then we're going to go to our Always Artichoke. And that just really starts to bring out the green by brushing that on top. I've tried this with a few different colors too. I'm doing the tutorial, the video in the traditional patina look, but I did some samples with some of the other colors as well, pumpkin pie and strawberry slush, and I'll show those to you before the video ends. And it's actually kind of cool. You can get some really beautiful looks with some of the different colors if you can think outside the box a bit and not just go for the traditional. So you can see there the different color that you get once you add the Always Artichoke. And then we'll do the early espresso. And now my sponge is really inky, so I want to make sure. It's one of my felt pads, but I think I just re-inked it, so I have to be careful I don't just bombard this piece of paper with early espresso, as nice as it is. So you can see how that really darkens up the stars. There. And now now this kind of gives you an idea what I mean. I feel like I've lost the blue in there. So I'm going to go back with the Lost Lagoon. Lost, go figure. And I'm going to put some more of the Lost Lagoon in there, just to bring out that blue tone again. I was so nervous for my presentation that I hope this video will really show you what I mean. My samples during the presentation ended up very light, so I hope those that are able to go back and watch this are able to really see the patina come out with the inking of the cardstock. There we go. Now I'm going to give this a little once over with the heat gun. You can do this with an embossing buddy too, and I hope this will come out in the video where I'm talking right into the camera. You can run an embossing buddy over the top of the cardstock. I've tried both, the embossing buddy and the heat gun, and I find sometimes they work, sometimes they don't for either one. The problem is we've put so much ink on this cardstock that it's getting very damp, very moist. And sometimes the embossing powder that we're going to use will stick to the whole thing. You won't just get it where you want it with the Versamark. So what I've done here is done a once over with the heat gun to hopefully dry it out a little bit. I'm going to try the next step on this piece of cardstock, and I think this will be good because it'll either work and you'll see the wonderful technique, or I'll be able to show you one of the boo-boos that can happen, and then I'll just move on to showing you the samples and you'll be able to see what I mean. What we want to do next after it's dried is to brush on the Versamark, okay? And very lightly brush on the Versamark. Don't go too heavy. What you want is you want this Versamark to catch the edges of whatever you've embossed. You don't want the embossing powder all over the background. So what I've done is just lightly run this over my stars. Now what I did before the East Coast stamping event, what I did where I was having problems with the cardstock being so damp, so moist that it was taking all the embossing powder, I did a bunch of these and then left them out overnight. And then I did the embossing the next day. So if you're having troubles with this, if you do a couple and it's just the embossing powder's all over the place, try doing up to this step before the Versamark and then just leave them for a few hours, leave them overnight, and then go back to them the next day and do the embossing. So we've got our Versamark on there, and then hopefully what'll happen is this is just going to catch on the edges of the stars. Yay, it's working. You see a little bit of the Versamark where it brushed up against the cardstock. That happens. But thankfully, until you put that heat gun to the embossing powder, you can take it off. So you can just take your spoon or whatever it is you use to put your powder on and just take off some of that excess. And I'll show you what happened when I tried to do it before. Let me see. The cardstock was just too damp. And you can see the embossing powder all over. It's not just stuck to the stars, it's stuck to the whole piece, which might be actually pretty. Maybe I should save that and emboss it. But what I wanted was just the embossing powder on the edges. So there we go. Let's see if we can emboss this up and you'll see what I mean. So you can see the embossing powder there. See how that's just catching on some of the edges of the stars. Really starts to give you that metallic, that faux patina, that true look that we're looking for. It's not all over. The metallic is just scattered throughout. There we go. So you can see what I mean, where the metallic is just catching the edges of the stars. So let's show you some of the other samples that I've got. That is the Faux Patina technique. Yay, we're done. Now you get to play with this and put it on all of your different projects. So let me show you. This is one I did before, very similar actually. They ended up very dark. I'm going to show you some of the other embossing folders that I have. These are all the current ones that I could find in my stash. And you can see the metallic. And this one ended up a lot lighter than the other one. The argyle. The stripes. The honeycomb. I like the way the honeycomb ended up very light again. You can see the different techniques. You're just playing with it, learning how the ink goes on. This one's actually done with the rose red and the polka dots. I'm not a fan of how these polka dots turned out because they're so small, but still a pretty background. So let me show you some of the samples I've got. Actually, before that, let's go to the color. You'll see that this one was done with the rose red here, but mostly I've stuck with the traditional patina with the Lost Lagoon. But what I did was I played a little bit. This one is strawberry slush, pumpkin pie, real red. I knew I'd never remember, so I had to write them on the back. And I took this sample with me when I went to the event. Blackberry Bliss, of course, I'm a purple fanatic, so this was one of my favorites. This embossing folder, although this sample isn't the best, this embossing folder really showed up much better than these dots. Just because there's more surface, I would imagine, for it to catch on. The honeycomb worked really well, and we've got that with the perfect plum and Marina Mist, and another blue that would give you more of that traditional feel. I liked the tealy color of the Lost Lagoon myself. There's the Lost Lagoon that we did, and see there are those dots. Looks much, much better on that sample. And then the last one was Calypso Coral. So that kind of gives you an idea there, and I'll have pictures of those. But let's show you some of the samples that I took to the event so I could show people how it actually looked on a finished project. Stashing through the snow, the Santa stash. It's the stars in the background. We did the wood embossing folder. Happy Wonderful Christmas. And this stamp set I just love. Really like the way the Faux Patina came out on the wood grain. I'd probably, now that I've done this a few times, I'd probably go back and add more of the Lost Lagoon, but I really like the way that caught the embossing folder. And I showed you this one earlier. The pair to this, the embossing folder, is this scalloped edge. And I'm turning this while it's in the camera, so hopefully you can get a good glimpse at how the gold catches on the edges. And I did a sympathy card with the mixed bunch stamp set. I wanted to have a little bit of everything, so I broke open my paper pumpkin kit. And I used the chevron. And I just used the top of the pie holder and some of our star clips and made a little bit of a Christmas card. This one has to be my favorite, I think, and it turned out very light, actually. But this one I used the ampersand. And I've struggled with this embossing folder. It's so big. I've tried to use it for projects, and it hasn't worked out. There's a few, though, that I've done, mostly scrapbooking pages, that I really like the look of. And then with the letters with the Mr. and Mrs. I liked the way that looked. And then I used the Lost Lagoon cardstock. I did a Christmas tag, and again with the dots. I really like the way the gold caught the dots. And I did one of our gift card holders, Mingle All the Way, and I used the Northern Flurry. This one picked it up really well. And rose red cardstock, I used the rose red ink on this one as well. And then lastly I did a really simple, really cute, really simple Project Life page, just keeping it basic, but I wanted to use that Northern Flurry again, and that's with one of the Project Life clear cards, and that one I did with the Lost Lagoon in the traditional patina look. So there you have it. There is the Faux Patina. I'm going to put pictures of all the projects so you can take a good look at them. They'll turn it a bit clearer than the video, I'm sure. And then as well, you've got the video tutorial to teach you how to do the Faux Patina look. So I hope you enjoyed the video tutorial. Happy stamping, good luck with your projects, and have fun with this technique. Thanks for stopping by.